So, Kavin, great to have you here.
Thank you.
And a few big milestones recently. The funding, of course, the 100 million users, 50 million downloads on Google Play. So I wanted to start this off with a question on what do you think is the reason behind the growth of Hike? So what, if you had to pick, say, three major points for the growth that you have witnessed?
I think that kind of growth doesn't come from a few points. It comes from a lot of very small points put together. I think just the mindset with which we've approached the market, the fact that we've localized the app so deeply to the smallest parts of the country has helped tremendously. We started off with something simple as Hike to SMS that allowed you to message folks that didn't even have a data plan. Today that manifests itself into Hike Offline, where if people switch their data plans off, you can still talk to them for free. We launched stickers as a way to communicate and express yourself better. What's pretty awesome is that stickers are being used a lot more in the South, where inputs and languages is very difficult.
Okay.
So we're seeing all these problems get solved by things that we're doing, and I'm just touching the top of the surface. And we've talked about this offline too, which is we really believe messaging was going to become the new sort of operating system for mobile internet in a country like India, where there's so many constraints on devices and data.
Right.
And so we launched news on the platform last year. In 6 months, we have people already browsing over 1.2 billion stories per month. That may make us the biggest news app in the country, I'm not sure, but it's a very big scale. The goal is very simple. We really believe apps are like CDs. Apps in the next 4 to 5 years will become obsolete. And we really believe messaging will do to apps what the browser did to the CD world back sort of on the desktop world.
Right.
So, when the browser came, it made all the native applications simply one more tab in the browser. You didn't need a Facebook CD, you didn't need an Amazon CD. You could type in horoscopes in Google and get a bunch of links that were ordered by the best links. You could open new tabs. So apps really became the tabs.
Right.
And our bet is that, and we see this happening today, that in messaging or in mobile, apps simply become one more contact in your address book. And that's how we managed to amass 100 million users, because we're solving a problem in a market like India where people actually want less number of apps that do more number of things that consume less bandwidth.
Right.
And messaging is by far at the top of that list, because human beings are social species.
Right.
We always gravitate
right?
towards communication, family, friends, and so on and so forth. So that's the idea.
Right. And I completely understand the lack of space on my phone, right? I keep deleting apps all the time.
Yeah.
So that's a big problem.
Absolutely.
So I also wanted to, it's quite interesting because WeChat has grown massively in China thanks to that ecosystem of apps that it has built, right? Like a lot of Chinese users don't even have other apps. So do you draw a little bit of inspiration from the way WeChat has grown and has evolved beyond what WhatsApp, which was seen as this global leader?
Yeah, when we launched Hike in December 2012, no one had heard of WeChat or Line, and we didn't know ourselves. We had this idea. What's, however, very awesome is that in the last couple of years, as we built the business, these models have been proven in Line, in Korea, and in sort of China.
Right.
And our belief is that India is sort of unique in the sense that it's the only, or at least it's the first mobile-first market globally.
True.
Where 1 billion people will come onto the internet for the first time in their lives on a mobile device. But also, it's a combination of US and China.
Okay.
We aspire to the West, but we live like the East. And so while it's great to look up to folks like WeChat and what they've done, they've tried to enter India and failed miserably.
Right.
It's because you have to localize what you learn from these markets so that it works in the Indian context, which is a very diverse and very complicated context.
Right. So I wanted you to speak a little bit more about that, because for years we've been hearing that the Facebook of India is Facebook, Google of India is Google. So how challenging is that? How do you compete with that?
We didn't start off by saying, let's go compete with Facebook. That's stupid. That's foolish, right? But we know now that for us to win, WhatsApp does not have to lose. Once people realize that in every country there will be 2 messaging apps that win, one that does simple text and photos, and one that is the OS and messaging as a platform, and you see it happening globally. You have Messenger and Snapchat and Kik and iMessage in the US. You have 4 that have hundreds of millions of users.
Right.
You have Kakao Talk in, I think, something called Pat Talk in Korea. You have QQ and WeChat in China. And now we're seeing WhatsApp and Hike are those two big applications in this country.
Right.
So if you want simple text and photos, you're better off going to WhatsApp. But if you want a world online where the internet's very simple and you want text and photos, you come to Hike. And we see people using both apps. But they do different things with different people in both the apps.
Right. So it's not a winner-take-all market. That's not.
I think
what it
simple
is.
messaging is a winner-take-all.
Okay.
But what we're building actually is not simple messaging. So we actually look at it as two fundamentally different markets.
Right.
Yeah.
And now you have a base of 100 million users and growing, right? And this is primarily in India. What percentage would it be in India?
I'd say 95% India, so mostly India.
So the insights that you have into the Indian internet slash mobile consumer, that's quite huge, right? So what are the interesting things that you have seen, the interesting demands that you have to meet when it comes to the Indian consumer? I'm sure a lot of techies here would like to know that.
You know, what we realized 3 months back was that, and we didn't know this, that Hike today is the largest Indian internet company by far by active users.
Right.
So Hike is the only Indian internet company that actually has very deep penetration into the Indian market in terms of users. And what we realized is that so after the first 5 million, India changes. After 15 million, India changes. After
Right.
30 million, India changes. 60 and then 100.
Wow.
It is very, very interesting. And a simple example of this was we've changed our design 4 times in the last 3 years,
Wow.
overhauled it to tackle these segments.
So what are the kind of changes?
We launched, we're a design obsessed company, so we launched, the first version of Hike had these fancy drawers. And in India, when the first smartphones came out, nobody got drawers. And so we removed the drawers. And then we added 3 tabs. Then we had to remove the 3 tabs. And now Hike is a simple one sort of, tab interface, but now we may have to go back to 3 tabs.
Okay.
Because the market's caught on. So you're sort of in this, midst of this market that's understanding how to use internet better, that's growing really fast, and it's very chaotic, and which is what we love.
Right.
But India is a very diverse country. It's a country of 20 plus countries. And it's definitely not easy to sort of tackle the market.
Right. And you also have Hike in 8 languages, right? So, and that's another interesting thing that we are seeing, because quite a few of the internet companies that are focusing on the Indian market, they're very specifically focused on the English-speaking market. But like you mentioned, I remember you were saying offline that when you go beyond 50 million, you need to start thinking of the non-English speakers. So if you could speak a little bit more about that, about why local language is important.
Yeah, after 50 million people, everything just changes. People can type in English and get to Hindi, but there's a lot of people, who also just don't know the language. So local languages are very important, which is why we launched 8 local languages last year in December. However, what we're seeing happen in the application is that no local keyboard, even the stuff we launched, will ever be as easy as the English keyboard.
Right.
It's a hard one to crack. It's very, very hard to crack. And people have their own layouts. Swipe has something, Google has something, we have something. And people simply resort to voice as a way of communication, and not like VoIP, but like walkie-talkie, push-to-talk.
Okay.
So people use that in the application in a big way, and the percentage of walkie-talkie messages over overall messages becomes higher as you go down the country.
Okay.
Because it's easier to tap and speak versus type something in.
Right.
And then you go further past 100 million, our big guess is that voice will be it's odd, but voice will be a very big way how you bring 1 billion people onto the internet.
Okay.
It's not going to be the local languages, it's going to be voice.
Okay.
Everybody gets voice. It's communication. That's our bet in the next couple of years.
So voice is not going away, which is something that a lot of telecom companies were worried about, right?
Oh
But
yeah, voice is going to
just
take a new form. Like messaging never went away, it took a new form.
Right.
Voice will take a new form. We're investing heavily in voice.
Right. I also wanted to, you were mentioning some of the innovations that you've done so far, right? So what more can we expect from Hike, especially in the near future? What are the things that you're working on? What are the things that's exciting you?
One of the things we asked ourselves at the end of last year, and we do a retrospective as to how the year went, was what are our strengths? What are we actually good at? The best part about our company is that we're the only product tech company, true product tech company in this country. Our team is 230 people. 85% of people are product guys, engineers, and developers.
Okay.
We have no warehousing, we have no taxis, we have
Right.
no real estate, we have none of that stuff.
Right.
And that gives us a big advantage to keep our experimentation costs low and try 100 different things. And we try 100 things, 2 of them ship. So what you see is what we ship.
Right.
And what's become very obvious to us now is that the trouble that a lot of people in the market are having is that the app model does not work. You talk to anybody, you talk to Kunal, you talk to Bhavesh, you talk to Sachin. The biggest problem is when people install the app and shop for a discount, the app gets off the phone the next second.
Right.
You know, this is my hike phone. It's a Moto E. It's a $130 phone, and I have 200 rupees on my balance.
Right.
It runs 2 apps. That's it.
Right.
And I have no space on my phone. So the question is, if I'm trying to book a taxi or trying to buy something, you know, you're not going to keep those apps on your phone because it's not a daily use case.
Right.
So we believe messaging can provide that distribution
Okay.
to all these folks because people spend so much time in messaging, which is what we're going to invest in this year. Which is, as we have built news, as we have built live scores, this is sort of us testing out as to what it looks like to build something on Hike, what it looks like to build one more micro app as a contact on Hike.
Okay.
So this year, we'd love to get to a position where we've launched 4 or 5 partners, and hopefully next year open this up. But it's very, very important to do this very tastefully. If you look at Line in Japan, it's a marketing tool. It's not a messaging tool.
Right.
Brands can spam you all day long.
Yeah, that
That's not
puts
what
off
we do.
users, right? When it's a spam, when it puts off users, right?
Yeah, it's more like if somebody has a channel on, let's say, you know, if we launch brand channels, we may do it, right? If you give the brands free reign, there's a marketing manager sitting inside the company pushing all these messages because he wants to get his conversion up.
Right.
We don't want that. Our goal is that if one more app is one more contact, that app has to be like your buddy. Like news is like my buddy, right? My buddy called news is sending me news every day.
Right.
So how do we take that approach and tastefully apply that to things that we don't control and thousands of applications and services and brands over the next year? And that's a very large focus that we have this year.
Right. And what kind of now you have news, you have live scores. So what next? Which would be is it e-commerce? Is it taxi? What?
You'll know soon.
Not giving away any secrets.
We're thinking through a lot of this stuff. I don't want to say we're launching all this stuff because, like I said, we'll test about 50 things internally and we'll launch 5.
Okay.
And what those 5 are, the market will tell us based on
Right.
the data that we have.
Right. I also wanted you were mentioning about how a majority of your team is product team, right? So I wanted you to talk a little bit more about the culture that you've built. And
Yeah.
and your team is mostly Delhi based?
Delhi and Bangalore.
Delhi
So
and
we have-
Bangalore. You can't escape Bangalore, right, when it comes to
Yeah,
technology?
and I like it here. Weather's nice, people are cool. Yeah.
Can escape Delhi in between.
Yeah.
Right. So tell me a little bit about the culture and how you have a new office now,
Yep.
a typical cool office. So tell me a little bit about that.
You know, this space moves so fast that the only way to keep up is remove sort of central control and the egos of people like myself and my management team and give as much autonomy to the teams below
Okay.
who are as close to the customers as possible. So we have this structure called the squad, tribe, chapter structure.
Okay.
So we have these things called squads, which are these vertical cross-functional teams. So in a squad, it's like a mini startup. You have a product lead and engineering lead who are like a mini me and the mini sort of head of engineering, who are dedicated towards building news, building stickers, building messaging. And they have a cross-functional team of developers, designers, QA, and so on and so forth. And their responsibility is to build the best experience, to build messaging, the best messaging experience, and so on and so forth. So we have 12 of these squads inside the company.
Wow.
And our goal is not to tell them what to do, because I really believe when you hire the best people, you don't tell them what to do, they should tell you what to do.
Right.
And can you build an environment that supports that? But at the same time, what many people do is give people autonomy and they don't align them.
Right.
And autonomy without alignment is anarchy, right? We've seen it happen in the company before.
Right.
So we've learned, so as long as you align people to the mission, the fact that we're building a messaging app as a brand new operating system for mobile, we have something called the Hike Code,
Okay.
which is 11 of our core values, our operating principles, which are, etched into our DNA, which allows us to let teams be autonomous.
Okay.
So all we got to focus on is the why and the how. The teams have to figure out the what.
Okay.
So we've gone from telling people what to do to coaching them the best way possible, which is why you see us hiring people like Rajesh, who's joined us from Google US, because the exposure that folks like him have in building these kind of companies is very large.
Right.
And you'll see us hire a few more of these folks going forward. Coming to the office, that was always a small dream of mine to sort of build an office like that, and I think we deserved it, right? Like 3 years, 100 million users. I think the team deserved it.
Right.
And I think it's a pretty cool office, and hopefully we can build a similar one in Bangalore soon. And the idea is very simple, right? No cubicles,
You've designed
open
the
plan.
office as well, right? You
Yeah,
had a couple
there's a
of
team of
designers.
3 of us internally that designed the office, and architecture is not that hard. Building an office is very much like building a product. When you walk into the office for the first time, what's your first time user experience, and so on and so forth, right? And we did it. So I think the team is pretty good, and I think that's where we are.
I wanted to move a little away from hike. The Indian internet economy has really taken off, right? That's like stating the obvious. So I wanted to understand that, where do you think this is going? Like, what are your views on what next for the Indian mobile internet economy? And especially like you're mentioning, there are first-time users who are coming on to internet through the mobile, and what they want is very different. What they expect is very different. So how difficult is it going to be for companies focused on that market? What do the companies need to do when they are targeting this market?
I think first of all, I may be on the opposite side of other people, but we do not have 400 million users. We just don't. It's total nonsense, right? What we have is a maximum of 150, maybe 200 million people on the internet. Now, what people don't realize is that out of those 200 million people on mobile internet, 75% of people use the internet in sachet format. So they'll buy a 150 MB pack for 7 days, they'll consume it, they may go offline for a week, and they may come back. That's the state of the internet. So there's a lot of stuff that has to be done just to make the understanding of the internet very, very simple and straightforward. I'm on a 7-day data pack. It finished day before yesterday. I had 200 rupees on my prepaid phone, and the telco penalized me and knocked it off because my data pack had finished.
No.
It's scary. I can afford that, but most people can't.
Right.
So those are the challenges that the ecosystem has to solve. Infrastructure has to get better. Telcos have to work towards a new go-to-market. Phones have gotten cheaper, but they have to get better and faster as well.
Right.
And I think it's always a 3-pronged race. Networks have to get better, phones have to get better, and you have to have content and services that force these guys to build better phones, which will bring people online.
Right.
And I think that's happening, but it's happening in pieces. And people ask me, hey, Kavin, is 4G going to change the country? I really hope so, but the big question that I have is, if you give 4G to a farmer, what's he going to do with it?
Right.
Nobody knows. And 4G in a sachet format is dangerous. I knocked off 10 GB last month in the first 10 days on my 4G device.
Oh, okay.
It's scary. So a lot of these things have to be thought through, and which is why, for example, TRI come out around differential pricing and so on and so forth.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff we can talk about there too, but I really believe a new business model has to emerge in the industry for us to get 1 billion people online. And it's not there right now, but I'm hoping that in the next couple of years, we come together as an industry and actually sort of talk about what that is.
You just mentioned TRI, so I wanted the final question to be on the freedom of internet. That's been the hot topic for the past many months, right? So where do you stand?
Sorry, what was the question?
The freedom of internet.
Yeah, I believe in free internet, of course, no doubt. It's very, very important. It's sort of bordering becoming a human right now. I think that's a good thing because I see how I live my life, and all of us live our lives on the internet. It's impossible to pull that rug from your feet. And I walked into Connaught Place, a couple of months back again, and you had this guy selling chart having a feature phone.
Right.
I was just like, wow, like this guy has no access to the internet, right? What a difference it could make in his life. So I am all for, freedom of speech and internet, but I really believe the current go-to-market models are not going to get 1.1 billion people online.
Right.
You need a new go-to-market strategy where you come together as phone guys, internet guys, and telco guys and figure out what that's going to be.
Right.
And that's how I'd sort of end that conversation.
Yeah. So on that note, thank you so much for joining us,
My
Kevin.
pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.